Good morning and welcome to Mental Health Matters Office Hours with me, Dr Audrey Tang. My co-host is Judith Crosier, and this is the show where we talk about all things workplace wellbeing. Now, we're very excited today. We have a guest zooming in today. He is the author of Cognitive Diversity at Work.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very interesting approach because it's so specifically cognitive thinking related, and we're from a space which is all about emotions and behaviors, and it's very unusual for us, and so I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So we'll go straight into the interview. Hello, Michael. It's great to chat with you. Please tell me about your book, Cognitive Diversity at Work, and what key messages you wanted to impart.
Thank you very much, Audrey and Judith, for inviting me to join you today. Because your world is all about emotions and behaviours, and my world is all about thinking, I'd like to send you 4 key messages. Firstly, cognitive diversity at work is purely brain-based. Secondly, it's fact-based. Thirdly, it's thinking-based. And fourthly, it's practical. Firstly, by brain-based, I mean that it's based on the whole brain model, which was developed by Ned Herman in the 1980s. It's a metaphorical model linked to the physical structures of the brain. It combines elements of 2 models of the brain: Roger Sperry's left and right brain model, and Paul MacLean's 3 layers of the evolutionary brain. The 3 layers are the reptilian brain at the bottom, the limbic system in the middle, and the neocortex at the top. In this way, the whole brain model has 4 quadrants instead of the 2 halves of the Sperry left and right brain. Secondly, by fact-based, I mean that the whole brain model was developed using electroencephalography testing on workers at General Electric. This experience, combined with research in business settings, gave it a practical, fact-based workplace context, in contrast with other theoretical approaches. Thirdly, by thinking-based, I mean that all adults worldwide at work, regardless of sex, gender, ethnicity or culture, have access to all 4 different ways of thinking. In the upper left quadrant, we think logically, analytically, factually, and quantitatively. In the lower left quadrant, we think in organized, sequential, planned and detailed ways. In the lower right quadrant, we think in interpersonal, feelings-based, kinesthetic, and emotional ways. And in the upper right quadrant, we think in holistic, intuitive, integrating, and synthesizing ways. Now let's explore 3 practical applications of cognitive diversity at work. Firstly, your personal cognitive diversity can be measured and profiled. It's measured by the strength of your personal preferences for each of the 4 ways of thinking. Secondly, your thinking leads to your interests, skills, competencies, and the type of work that gives you most job satisfaction. So let's look at typical jobs relating to each quadrant. In the upper left quadrant, typical jobs include lawyer, engineer, doctor, financier, and chemist. In the lower left quadrant, we find operations managers, quality managers, risk managers, and project managers. In the lower right quadrant, typical jobs include teacher, social worker, care worker, trainer, coach, nurse, and sales. And in the upper right quadrant, we find entrepreneurs, management consultants, stylists, strategic planners, and musicians. Thirdly, let's look at the 4 big questions at work: why, what, how, and who. We always start in the upper right experimental quadrant. Why do we have a problem to solve? Why do we have a decision to make? Why do we need this thing? At this point, we may well decide not to take any further action. But if we do decide to proceed, then we move to the upper left analytical quadrant. What exactly are we going to do or make? What exactly is the problem? What exactly is the decision we need to make? At this point, we may well decide not to take any further action. But if we do decide to proceed, then we move to the lower left practical quadrant. How are we going to make the what? How many resources do we need? How will the resources be organized? How will the work be planned, monitored and controlled? How will we know that we've completed the work? And what about the who questions? At all times, the lower right relational quadrant supports our people. For example, do our people need training, coaching, or mentoring? Or do our people need counseling, care, or support in some way? So the four key messages I want to send today are that cognitive diversity at work is purely brain-based, fact-based, thinking-based, and practical. It makes you aware of your own thinking preferences in terms of analytical, practical, relational, and experimental thinking. It makes you aware of your strengths, where you are strong, where you are intermediate, where you are low, where you have a low strength in those thinking preferences. Let me just describe what each strength means. If you have a low preference for, say, analytical thinking, that means that you might actually avoid analytical thinking, and you might avoid doing mathematics.
Yes, that's true.
If you have an intermediate preference for analytical thinking, that means at work you can get by on doing simple arithmetic, which most of us do in daily life and at work. If you have a strong preference for analytical thinking, this is the way you prefer to think when you're making decisions and solving problems and communicating with other people and collaborating with other people at work. And if you have a strong preference, say, for relational thinking, it will be obvious to your work colleagues that you do have that because of the way you speak, the way you behave, the way you act will demonstrate that you are a relational person. You are interpersonal. You care for people. You are obviously a great teacher or a lecturer or a carer. And you have concern for people. You have empathy with people. And these qualities shine out of people. And I've met people, and these qualities shine out of people. They're quite obvious. The key thing is, people can't be taught to do that. It's nature. There's a mix of nature and nurture. And Ned Herman found that as children, and you probably know more about this than I do, it's mainly nature. And then as the child grows, they're exposed to nurture. And you might start out with 70% nature and 30% nurture. But by the time you're an adult at work, you've been through so many influences that you are 70% nurture and 30% nature.
Yes.
And people are behaving and reacting in a way they think they are expected to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, and I think what you say is really nice. I like the breakdown of if you're low on it, you avoid it.
Yes.
If you're mid on it, you can do it,
Yeah.
but you don't seek it out. But if you're high on it, that's how you want to be. I think that's a really nice distinction.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it reminded me when you said about that as well, that there's so many people that say, I'm really not good at maths. Well, actually, they're probably not good at maths, but they're probably low in the analysis side. Doesn't mean they're not good at it. It just means they don't really they're not interested, or they don't want to engage that part of their brain, maybe.
Now, if we can delve into more detail here. For example, in the analytical quadrant, I did mention 4 main descriptors, which go along like factual, quantitative. In each quadrant, when you delve down to the deeper level, through using the questionnaire to measure your strength of preferences in a particular quadrant, then you get down into the level of clusters of even more detailed meanings. And the questionnaire is able to pick and allocate more detailed descriptors into your profile. Your strength of preference is measured from 0 to 100 in 3 bands. From 0 to 33, it's a low preference, and you might actually avoid that way of thinking. From 34 to 66, it's intermediate, and you develop enough thinking and from that skills and competencies to get by at work.
Yes.
To get by.
Yes.
You can understand your payslip. You can understand if you've paid too much tax.
Yeah.
But you might not know what to do about it. and you might have to wait 6 months for somebody at HMRC to return your call.
That is true. But because we're more relational and want to talk to someone about it. That's so true.
And then on the scale from 67 to 100, you are showing a strong preference, and your strong preference is the thinking, the mode of thinking you use when you make decisions, solve problems, collaborate, and so on. Now, there is a measure beyond 100, and when I was first profiled, I was off the scale in upper right. In upper right thinking.
Oh, okay.
Off the scale.
Wow.
Off the scale. And when I saw my profile, I was shocked. And I saw that in quadrant 2, practical, I was only measuring 2. Getting by. And yet I was a project manager. And project management is focused in the practical quadrant.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's all about planning.
Yeah.
All about organizing. All about controlling. All about monitoring the progress of work. All about making decisions about what to do when you're off plan, off track, when you're late, when you're overspending. There's an awful lot of practical work there.
Yeah.
And there were aspects about project management which I didn't enjoy, but I didn't know why. And it was only when I saw my profile that I realized why. Because my mind is conceptual. I use my imagination. I think of the future. And of course, the execution of projects is here, day to day.
Yes.
What's happening today? What's happening in the next hour?
Yeah.
Why haven't you done this? Why are you late on this? Why have you overspent on that?
It's true.
Whereas where my mind was, where I preferred to be, was imagining and scoping a future project.
But you didn't realise that that was where your strengths lie. Yeah.
Michael, we are going to go to a break and then we're going to come back to you, because what we want to do is talk about how we can actually improve when we are very low on a quadrant and want to get a bit higher. So we'll be back just after this.
Navigating today's workplace is tough.
Toxic employees, endless drama, a lack of motivation. We've all been there.
But fear not, we are here to help. My name is Leanne and I'm a chartered psychologist.
My name is Al and I'm a business owner, and together we dig into the scientific and commercial secrets behind great workplace cultures in truth, lies and work.
A no-nonsense, award-winning psychology podcast brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. We explore practical strategies for building a great workplace.
We debunk buzzwords and bring you the very best advice around finding and keeping great people, from personality tests.
Personality tests they're mostly bollocks. I don't know what kind of language you do on your podcast. I don't know if people know this, but the man who wrote the Wonder Woman comics is the person who invented the disc.
When more flexible working became a norm, you no longer hurt your career prospects by being the one person who worked flexibly.
All the way to avoiding high turnover.
We recruit and promote people to managerial roles based on their technical skills, not their people skills. This is a very fundamental problem we have, which we haven't directly tackled.
From toxic-free cultures,
interventions for the individual are only half the answer. Systemic change is the other half.
to sustainable growth.
Thinking beyond just paying somebody a good salary, I think is super necessary now. We have to offer so much more than that.
We have got you covered.
So join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where we help you to simplify the science of work and build amazing workplace cultures.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters Office Hours. We've been having such an interesting conversation. I'm learning about myself as you're talking, Michael. Michael's written the book, Cognitive Diversity at Work. And this book focuses on how we think, specifically on how we think. Don't come to it for understanding about psychology. There are other books to go and do that. And what I love about this approach is it really is giving me an insight into, why is it I react and respond or resonate with certain things more than others, and why I really dislike other bits.
Yes.
But one thing that you said earlier really got to us, and this was about how doing your cognitive diversity test, we can be really low in some quadrants and really high in others. And I know Jude wants to ask you about that and how we can improve.
Yeah. I found that absolutely fascinating, that you thought you were, one way and you ended up being completely the opposite, or not the opposite, but not where you thought you were. So in terms of reacting with others and working with others, then I can see now how in past jobs, why there might have been dissonance and people not getting on. It's so fascinating, and it never occurred to me before. So what do you think it is that causes, it might be an obvious question now, given what you've said, but what do you think causes us not to listen and not want to listen and learn from other people?
People live their lives in a comfort zone.
Yes.
That's very true.
As they go through life, they develop habits which they like. You only keep doing a habit if you're rewarded by it.
Well, yes, that's true.
If you're not rewarded by it, then you'll discard it and you'll find another habit. But in general, people create their own comfort zone through their habits. And you cannot tell someone to stop a habit if it's rewarding for them.
Right.
That's true.
Okay.
You can't tell them. And this reminds me of the coaching spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you've got coaching, which is all about asking questions and eliciting the inner strengths in a person to solve their own problems.
Yes.
Because in coaching, as we know, people have the solution to their own problems internally, but they don't know it.
Yes.
And the job of the coach is to draw them out so that they discover their own inner qualities, which can get them out of the situation they're in. Now, on this continuum, we go from coaching through mentoring, where the coach can draw on their own experience to give advice. But the coach at that point has to ask their client, may I give you some advice?
Yes, true.
Instead, I want to come out of being a coach. I want to be a mentor for a minute. Are you happy with that?
Okay.
Okay. And then we carry on with the
spectrum, the continuum.
We carry on with the spectrum to teaching and training and instruction. And this is where you're telling people how to do something.
Yes.
Don't ask any questions, just do as I say. Okay? Stop that habit.
Yes, yes.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work because they're in a comfort zone and they don't want to listen and learn. It can be too uncomfortable to even think of breaking out of a comfort zone.
You've got a manager and they're thinking, I want that employee to behave in this particular way, and I can't seem to coach them out of it. I can't seem to mentor them out of it. How do you help someone begin to explore outside that comfort zone?
Thinking always precedes behavior. And if you want to change your behavior, you first change your thinking. When you start with them, they don't realize they need help.
Yes. Yes.
So what we say to them is, okay, what are you unhappy with? What outcome are you dissatisfied with? What outcome do you want to change? And then they explain, well, I'm getting this outcome from this habit, from this way of working, from this way of thinking, from this behavior, and I'm not happy about it. So then you have to ask them, well, what would you prefer to have? What outcome would you prefer to have? And this is getting into the realms of NLP. And then if they say, if they say, well, what I would prefer to have is this, and then you challenge them by saying, do you want that? Do you want that? Do you really want that? Are you willing to put the hard work in to change, to have that different outcome? And if they say yes, then we know they're self-motivated.
Yes.
And change, real lasting change, real effective change only comes within a person if they are self-motivated to change. And we then trade on that willingness to change by showing them exercises using whole brain thinking, using cognitive diversity to change their thinking and their behavior. In cognitive diversity, I would prefer to use the word grow.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Because if we just go back to the scale between 0 and 100, what we're talking about is growing a strength of thinking.
Yes.
So we need to find exercises which will grow that thinking preference. Now, I recall attending a conference, a project management conference, years ago. And during lunch, a young woman came up to me and she introduced herself. She was very attractive. And I thought, what is going on? Why is this young woman coming to me, introducing herself and being friendly? And I'm a married man, 2 adult children, and I'm thinking, what's happening? So I asked her, what's happening? What's going on here?
Brilliant.
And she said, my manager says that I need to grow my relational thinking, and when the opportunity arises, I should simply go up to somebody and introduce myself and start a conversation.
I love that.
And that is a classic thing in cognitive diversity at work. We would say to a client, if they wanted to grow their relational thinking, then introduce yourself to other people and start a conversation. Yeah. Another example here that I can think of is I joined a walking group for people of my age group, walking over the South Downs. Okay. It's organised under the auspices of the Horsham District Council for Wellbeing and socialising. And the idea is that you turn up for a walk, and there are maybe 20 people there. And as you walk along, you chat with people, you change partners, you carry on, and you socialise and you exercise at the same time. At the end of the walk, we have refreshments, coffee, and cake, and continue to chat. And I then saw the opportunity to become a walk leader. So I'm now responsible for providing the refreshments after the walk. Now, so when I started with the walking group, I didn't mix with anybody. I didn't talk to anybody because nobody came to me to invite me into the group.
Yeah.
And I just went along with it. Of course, I had a lot of internal knowledge about NLP, coaching, and whole brain thinking. So I'm able to control my thinking. I'm able to be happy with my situation. I'm able to be comfortable in the situation because I know what's going on. I appreciate people may be shy to come to a new person. And so I gradually blended in with the other walkers. But I did notice one person, a man in particular, who had no hesitation whatsoever in going up to people and engaging them in conversation. And he would do this with anybody. And especially if it was a new walker, he would go up to them and say, "Hello, I'm so-and-so. Who are you? What are you doing here? Are you new? Do you go on other walks? Blah, blah, blah." And I observed this chap over several walks. And because I'm into NLP and coaching and whole brain thinking, I deliberately went up to him during the walk and I said, "I've been watching you."
Not just like that.
I've been watching you, and I'm intrigued how you easily make friends, contacts, how you fall into conversation. How do you do it? Because we know in coaching that you can model people. In NLP, we know that you can model people. And modeling is a great skill, a very great skill. And even though I'm supposed to know a lot, I'm always willing to learn. I have a completely open mind at all times. And if I see an opportunity for learning, I will take it. And I thought I could learn something from this chap. Well, I'm very, very happy to tell you that this chap is now my best friend.
Oh.
And he's like a brother. Oh. And we're very close.
Oh, that's amazing.
He is a widower, tragically. He does live alone, but he has a family. And I've been introduced to his family, and we go as a family group to to the ballet at the Royal Opera House.
Oh. And I love that, because I love the fact that you watched this gentleman who was obviously very sociable and decided to go and talk to him about it. Did he ever talk to you about why he was like that, or how he was able to do that with people he didn't know?
I've observed him very closely, and I think it's in his nature. I think it's in his nature. Relational thinking is all about interpersonal relationships, communicating, nurturing, caring, empathy, which is distinct from sympathy. It's not the same thing at all. Empathy resides in the lower right relational thinking, and it's in their nature. And we've already mentioned the case of the male nurse. And these people are naturally have a strong preference for relational thinking.
I think that's beautiful, because someone with a strong preference for relational, they can be a bit much sometimes for people. And I think the fact that you saw it as a skill that you wanted to learn more about, that I think that he would have really appreciated that, because there's so many times where I think, you know, you got to people and try and be friendly and they're just a bit, you know, so I think that, reciprocity, or that appreciation of what he could offer, was something that really you could give him, and only you could give him. And I think that's just beautiful.
Well, thank you for that. And I'd like to pick you up on that term you've used of skill, because at the root of it all is the thinking preference. And thinking, as we know, is totally internalized. If you're very, very, very skilled in NLP, you can possibly sense by observing somebody how they're thinking, but you have to be really skilled to do that. We know how somebody is thinking because of the way they behave, because of their actions. Now, with a strong preference for relational thinking, you will naturally do things and say things and behave repeatedly in such a way, and repeatedly do it until you are skilled at it. And then you become skilled. And as we know, a competency is not the same as a skill. Because in terms of competency, we're comparing things to a standard. Where you first of all develop a skill, and then you can compare your skill level with the competency standard. So that you can say, I am skilled at doing this in this environment to that level of quality. So that's how I differentiate between skill and competency. But first of all, we have to develop a skill, and that's through repeated behavior, where we refine the behavior until it becomes a skill. If you go through that process, it will take time. As we know, personal change takes time. If you want to accelerate personal change, then I would advise people to go to a coach who will find ways of accelerating that change. If you do exercises like the young lady who came up to me and introduced herself, gradually over a year she will change. But if she wants to change within a week, she needs a coach.
Yes, absolutely. Michael, where can we get hold of your book, Cognitive Diversity at Work? We will put that information with the show notes.
Here's the book.
Marvellous.
Perfect.
And it's available on Amazon Bookshop as a paperback and as a Kindle.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Michael, thank you so much. And we're going to head over to Bijal, who was on our show before, to give us the difference between coaching and mentoring, and which all of those are used for.
Amazing.
So for those of us who are new to coaching and mentoring, do you mind sharing a little bit about the difference between the two and what both of them actually mean?
Yeah, so, I love talking about this topic, and it is really, really something close to my heart, because it's been both coaching and mentoring have been transformative parts of my journey to help me get to where I am and to where I want to be in the future. So, okay, let's talk about coaching and let's talk about mentoring. So first of all, let's talk about the role of a coach and the role of a mentor. So a coach, their role is normally more facilitation based. So they will work with someone to find their own solutions, and they will, through questioning and feedback. Whereas a mentor is someone who's done it before. They're usually very experienced, and they have wise words to offer, and they can show you how to do it the right way. And you can learn from their mistakes, their stories. You've got a hand-holding process involved. Now, coaching is more goal focused, whereas mentoring is more support focused. So with coaching, it's more about working towards sort of a specific goal, whereas mentoring encompasses much more. So my first top tip is, if you are an organization that hasn't got any coaching or mentoring, give it a try. Okay, just give it a try. There's so many people out there that you can call to just see what is this all about. Okay. Also, if you go online, there are many, many pieces of research and stats to show how coaching and mentoring has supported, employees, teams to be really, really effective. So give it a try. The second thing I would say is, you're going to implement a program, get your objectives clear. Make sure you understand the matching process. Make sure the training is in place, that those people who are doing coaching or mentoring, embarking on that journey, being the coach, being the mentor, that they have had the appropriate training and experience. And then just make sure that there is a safe space there for people to give feedback. Make sure that you are flexible and adaptive, and understand that through the process, the humans that you're working with may need a little time, may need a little bit of flexibility, as emotional history it can be released. All right, it's not the same for everyone, but you may have to then think, if you are going to engage in a coaching and mentoring program, do you have an employee assistance program or something similar that you can kind of signpost someone to if they need a bit of counselling after, or therapy, for example? So that. And then number 3, I would just say, check out your coach. If you're not part of an organisation, make sure that they've got some sort of credential, ICF, AC, EMCC, something like that. And you can go online and check what these credentials are as well. And most of all, if you are going to enter in this process, understand that you'll never be the same, because when you enter into a coaching or mentoring program, you do have professional and personal growth. And when we talk about education, we have people in education who are one-to-ones, right? So a one-to-one teaching assistant or learning support assistant will support someone to get to where they want to be, to help them every day, right? And in a way, you've got a one-to-one for a little bit of time, and you've got someone to support you, because we can't do it on our own. Yeah. All right. And coaches and mentors have tools, and they have insights that they can extract out of you to help you to really evolve in your human experience.
That's beautiful. That's really nice. I like the idea of evolution and also alignment. I think those two are really, really key points. Let's talk about neuro-linguistic programming. NLP is something that our guest has talked about a lot, and what it relates to is the language we use to put into our brain. Think of your brain a bit like a computer. What you program into it will come out. And so if you're constantly telling yourself negative things, that will manifest in your behaviors. When it comes to NLP and the uses of NLP, there are lots of different ways you can apply it, because neuro-linguistic programming is also about some of the more subtle elements of behavior and thought and thinking that we don't really realize. So one of the things our guest talked about was modeling. And this technique is known as match, pace, and lead. Match, pace, and lead. And this is helpful for a new leader, new manager who comes into a team. You can't just go in, exactly as our guest has said, and go, oh, I don't want it done this way. We're all going to have to change, and we're going to do it my way instead, because you're going to get a lot of pushback on that. But using the match, pace, and lead technique from NLP, you will be able to work alongside what is going on and then slowly change that. And I want you to think about this a little bit like a dance class. You start off by matching what people are doing in time to the music. So what I do is I go back to a marching tempo, and everybody matches up with that tempo. So you look at what they're doing, you work, match what they're doing. And then you pace alongside them, and you keep going with what they're doing, following them. But then you can change the move because the group is now following with you. But if you went straight in, and people are all marching, and then you suddenly go, right, we're going to step to the side. Everyone goes, wow, what's going on? So this technique is really useful. If you're a new person in that team, watch what the team does. Match what they do, partly because some of the stuff they may be doing could suit you and you may not realize it. Second, pace alongside them. Do what they're doing and the way they're doing it. But then as you connect with them on their terms, you can slowly change the tempo and begin to lead in your particular way. What a nice conversation about how we can change our thoughts leading to behavior change, or how we can also understand each other and grow from each other.
I love that conversation. It was so interesting, and I love the science of it as well, I think. And it reminded me of being at university and learning about the way the brain works and how people learn.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed that. I could have listened to the scientific, well, all elements. I could have carried on the conversation.
Yeah, he was like one of your favourite lecturers.
Yes.
Wasn't he? Brilliant. It was
absolutely.
It was such a warm conversation.
Yeah, you can imagine the lecture hall would be, everyone would crowd into that one to listen to Michael. It was so interesting. So I think kind of my biggest takeaway was actually the brain does work very scientifically. It does work like that. You know, you do have the 4 different parts, or there's more than 4, but in respect to what we're talking about. And you might not, Michael was saying he was really surprised that he wasn't like this, but he was like this. And so it's just being open-minded to accept that actually, A, you might not be the type of person that you think you are, and B, you can change your way of working and relating to other people.
Yes, yeah. And I think I've mentioned this a couple of times because it was something that really struck me, was the whole idea that you can be really low on something, which means that if you have that lower preference, you will avoid that thing.
Yes.
And I will often then describe it as I'm no good at it, because I avoid it. Actually, the truth is I just avoid it.
Yes.
And I can cope. It's like maths is what I'm talking about.
Yes, well, exactly.
I can add.
Yeah.
I can do simple sums. But I dislike it so much. But I will use the phrase, I'm not good at it. And I think if I tell myself that enough, I'm going to believe that.
You hear so many people saying that I'm really rubbish at maths, and they can't. The amount of people that say it can't be. They're not, but they just don't like it.
And the worst thing is, the more I say I'm not good at it rather than I don't like it, the more scared I make myself if I have to do so. And so I get more stressed when I look at something mathematical. Whereas actually, if I just told myself I don't like it, I'll end up going, okay, fine, let's get on with it.
Yes, exactly. It can make you change your whole way of looking at something.
Yeah, what we put in there really does come out in how we behave. Yeah. Of course, there are many different approaches. Cognitive is one approach. You've got the behavioural approach, the humanist approach, you've got the psychoanalytical approach, Gestalt, all of those different things. So what's really interesting was just a deep dive into the cognitive approach today.
Yes.
Well, we would love to hear what your thoughts are, and maybe even thoughts leading to behaviours. And from us and the team here, have a healthy week.